Hi, my name is Hirsch Tapadia, and I'm the CEO of Allstacks. And I'm looking forward to sharing a little bit of data with you about how the state of software development has changed in the lens of our COVID-19 pandemic. For a lot of orgs, remote work came as kind of a shock to the system. Fun fact, 60% of all project status updates, so how we all talked about how we were doing against our deliverables, 60% of those happen in person as late as February of 2020. And obviously that's not possible anymore. So organizations like of any size that are building software, they're really facing a lot of change. And so for this series, we focused on three aspects of how work has changed: people, process, and outcomes. And today we're going to focus on people. So as we dig into a few ways the people's behavior, the people on your team's behavior has changed, we're going to cover the following topics. Just in general, how did productivity change? When are people working and what are they dealing with? Are things taking longer? And how should you support your team? So with that, let's dive in. First of all, how did productivity change? Well, the signs here are actually really positive. So kind of in early March, we saw this whole hog transition to remote. Well, pretty much every technology company in the first 2 or so weeks of March made the shift, whether it was by mandate or optional, eventually becoming mandatory. But the signs were really positive. There was a dip in throughput in the first 2 weeks of March as we saw people really just trying to figure out how do they even exist in this new world? How are they going to take care of their kids? How are they going to work? Do they have the right equipment? Do they have Zoom and other licenses? So there was a lot of consternation at that time. But what's really encouraging is that as they got through all that continuity planning, there was a really fast rebound. And a couple of really interesting things here. So quickly got back to pretty close to normal. More importantly, very stable. And there's actually even a higher focus on stories versus other types of work, which means that we're spending more time on our planned work and versus our overall unplanned interruptions work. So even though there was that dip, it may actually end up on the whole resulting in a higher performing organization once we made this transition. And then when we look at how people's work has changed, there's a few things to consider here. So overall, work patterns have been pretty steady day by day. There's a couple notable exceptions include Monday, Saturday, and Sunday. So something that we saw that was really interesting is that work went up by about 10% on Monday. This might be just overall due to fewer meetings. A lot of companies, Monday is the status meeting day, and pulling that out means that people can really focus and do more work. The thing that's a little more concerning, though, is the 25% increase on work on Saturday and the increase on work on Sunday. And as people go into this work from home life, that home and work life is really blurring. So remember to encourage your team to take some time off, recharge, because you really don't want your team to burn out. You don't want to see that ratio increase. Supporting their mental health, supporting those separations is going to, for the long run, create better outcomes. And when we break that down to day by day, what do the hours look like within a day? Well, there's some interesting trends here. So first of all, we're not commuting anymore. And losing that commuting time and shifting that to work time means we see more people starting their days earlier, getting a lot of activity and deep work in those first 4 or 5 hours of the day, which means that people can kind of adhere to their natural work patterns if that option is available to them. Some people work really well early in the morning, some people work really well late at night, but whatever works for them, they can kind of adhere to. They don't have this artificial constraint of commuting, and office hours. As a result of that, we're seeing a couple other interesting trends, a little bit more work during lunch and a little bit of work days ending a little earlier. Now, there's a lot of different reasons for that to happen. It's not just work from home. It's actually everything at home, which means that, you have to be able to support your team's other commitments as well. So childcare, education, being a caretaker. And so just be mindful that in order to make work from home work, some of your team are being forced to be creative in how they manage actually their entire existence at home. And so to that end, what we always encourage, whether they're working from home or your team's working at any time, you really want to focus on outcomes over activity everywhere you can. So that if you do that, you can really manage any schedule. And speaking of outcomes and collaboration, we started to look at how did that change? Are we doing our work? Are we following through our commitments? Have we seen any dip there? And we were pretty pleased to see that across the board, it's been steady. So one example of this is just pull request cycle time. How long does it take from when a pull request is opened to when that code is reviewed and it's merged into the code base? And we really haven't seen much of a change at all. It's been steady across the board. Slight upticks here and there, but what we're seeing is that through this transition, people have still been able to be collaborative and still drive their outcomes forward. So with all that, we just like to close by saying, it's really important to support your team's new situation. It's at the end of the day, a set of people, a set of humans that we're working with, and we want to make them successful. So their mental health, their burnout, those things are paramount. So we just have a couple strategies. Encourage your team to establish that work-life separation so they can actually get that time to recharge. Focus on outcomes over activity. Your delivery of software is what really matters, not how much time that they spend building software. For those that have the option, encourage them to settle into natural work patterns. If people feel better and they prefer working in certain schedules and you're able to accommodate that, great. Let them kind of live their best lives in those ways. And support your communication by leaning into your processes. If we know that we're all not going to be available at the same time, we're all having to deal with all these externalities, use those tools, lean into those processes so that things get recorded and shared in ways that you don't have to feel like you're off on an island by yourself. So with that, I appreciate you joining me as we talk through how COVID is changing the work landscape. Our next segment, we're going to be focusing on the process part of people, process, and outcomes. If you'd like to be included in this study, it's not too late. With Allstacks, we can analyze your history. We can help you understand what's changed for your team and where you stand relative to the population at large. Just shoot us an email at covidreport@allstacks.com and we'll get you pulled in. Thanks again.